All right, you've probably heard of this group. They're a bunch of never Trumpers who have formed a super PAC. They go by the name of the Lincoln Project, and their mission is pretty simple. They want to defeat President Trump and Trumpism out the ballot box, according to themselves. They've released an ad that attacks President Trump, and they've got this all on their Twitter page, and they're poking fun at his recent interview on Fox with Chris Wallace. The headline on the tweet reads, "No re-election for you." Take a listen to this.
To the best of my knowledge, we're sitting at the White House.
I must tell you.
No, I'm just telling you. And the Oval Office is right behind me.
Fox News has a new poll out today. Joe Biden leads you by 8 points, 49% to 41.
First of all, I'm not losing.
People trust Biden more to handle the coronavirus by 17 points, on race relations by 21 points.
Those are fake polls.
Not really sure what the ad was supposed to do. It's kind of disjointed at best. But joining us now to help point out the petty flaws in that project is award-winning journalist and author of a brand new book. It's John Solomon's new book. It's called Fallout: Nuclear Bribes, Russian Spies, and the Washington Lies that Enriched the Clinton and Biden dynasties. Welcome, John Solomon, to the show. Good to see you.
It's good to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
First of all, I think the title's a mouthful, man. Congratulations. It's done very, very well.
Thanks.
You expose a lot in here that people haven't really probably known, especially around Uranium One and a lot of the connections between Russia, Burmisva, Biden, his son. And it's really interesting. So, but the first question I want to ask you is, do you think that this should become a campaign issue for the Trump campaign? I'm sorry.
Well, listen, I think the larger story in this book is that the reason we had the fake Russia scandal was that Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, and Barack Obama had to cover up for their worst foreign policy failure, perhaps the worst in 50 years, the Russia reset, where we gave away the farm and we got nothing back from Vladimir Putin except an invasion in Crimea of Ukraine. And so the corruption issues and the foreign policy issues are going to be relevant to this election because Joe Biden was the foreign policy guy. Barack Obama wasn't interested in foreign policy. His foreign policy philosophy, he once said, was just don't do something stupid. That's not much of a doctrine. And so Joe Biden is responsible for the China policy, the Russia policy, all those things that are going to be relevant to the American people in the fall. So yeah, I hope this story permeates into the election because it is a story about failed election or failed foreign policy and corruption around that foreign policy. People cashing in even as the policy is failing.
You know, John, looking at your book, like Sean mentioned, a lot of this stuff is really eye-opening, especially really focusing on Biden's involvement, like you said, in this Russian reset, pretty much saying that it gave the Kremlin American intel. Do you think that the left or swing voters are actually going to pay attention to this? Is this going to move the needle for people, or do they even care?
Listen, I think Russia has probably been worn out thanks to Robert Mueller and the Steele report. I think we've heard enough about Russia. I think the bigger question is which philosophy of foreign policy will people trust in the fall? Donald Trump has kind of gone back to the Reagan philosophy of peace through strength. We're going to come down hard on our enemies and bring them to the table and get the concessions we wanted. Barack Obama spent 8 years, particularly with Joe Biden as the quarterback and Hillary Clinton as the diplomat, doing what we call appeasement, which is we give our enemies everything they want and we hope they act well. Iran, Russia, China. And if you look, Joe Biden is now running against his own China policy. In 2014, 13, 15, he was saying China's not a threat. The Republicans are just neocons, they're crazy. And remember, Barack Obama said, I can do something for you, Vladimir Putin, after the election. We're friends. Both of those policies turned out to be failures. And I think the larger approach to foreign policy is going to be far more relevant than, let's say, any specific episode in the Russia scandal or the Uranium One scandal.
Well, we're talking about election and the impact it's going to have. As I mentioned at the top about this Lincoln group, this group of Lincoln Project, group of never Trumpers. They're out there with a bunch of ads. I want to bring Mark Halpern, our political analyst, into this discussion and talk about the impact of the ads and the project itself on this upcoming election. Mark, you heard the ad that the Lincoln Project just put out. I've seen a lot of ads over my career. You have as well. This one in particular seems extremely weak, and I'm really not sure how or who it's supposed to be influencing. What do you think about the ad?
All of their work is intended to influence the media. And that ad, they make more ads than any outfit I've ever seen. Some may not work, some may work, but their whole goal is to get earned media to try to defeat the president and now to try to defeat some Republican Senate candidates. I think they're having more of an influence on earned media than any organization of their kind in the history of media.
You know, that's not. That doesn't shock me because I think that a lot of the folks in the media want this to be true. They don't like Trump, so therefore they're giving attention to it. John Solomon, you write in your book a lot about Russia. There was a story out the other day that a lot of these folks in the Lincoln Project have connections to Russia, have lobbied for Russian companies. Do you think that that's a concern?
Listen, I think what's going on here, and it was an art form in the 2016 election of creating false reality, trying to create a portrait that the Republicans are not with Donald Trump. All the polls I've seen, including our own poll at Just the News, has Republican support 93, 94, 95% behind Donald Trump. So this group is designed to create the impression that there's a big splinter group. There's not a big splinter group. The Never Trumpers have shrunk over the years, and I think Mark has it exactly right. This is not a group spending a lot of money on television, making a real impact in the election. They're trying to trick the media into creating the illusion that there's a big fallout in the Republican Party against Donald Trump. It's just not true by the polling numbers.
You know, Mark, we often talk about how this election is going to be won in these battleground states. And I will say that the Lincoln Project is spending millions of dollars in swing states. Do you think they'll be able to have an impact there with voters?
I do, but again, less on their spending because, as you know, Lindsay, presidential campaigns, the spending matters, the paid media, but it's about earned media. You think about the Swift Boat Veterans for Truth in the 2004 campaign, running ads against John Kerry. They didn't spend very much, but their impact on the earned media was massive. And as I said, I think this group, focusing on the battleground states, but also in the national dialogue, is just, they're smart. Whether they're enriching themselves, whether they've got ties to Russia, this is a smart group of people. They get politics and they get how to manipulate the media, which, as Sean said, is interested in anti-Trump ads, anti-Trump content. That gives them a huge advantage. They know what they're doing. They know who their audience is.
John Solomon, I agree with Mark. The audience is largely the media, and they've done a good job of that. The other audience, clearly by some of the other ads, is the president himself. They seem to want to troll him. They run these ads on Fox, on programs that they think he's going to be watching, and try to get a reaction from them. I think it's a mistake for the president to react. What do you think about their tactic of trying to troll the president?
Oh, there's no doubt that's a big part of the entire opposition to Donald Trump's tactic. And for a while, it was working, right? Donald Trump would get down in the gutter and dirty it up with them in Twitter. I've seen a different president the last 3-4 weeks. I think particularly since Mount Rushmore, he's not getting down in the gutter. He's wearing a mask, even though he doesn't really necessarily believe it works. He wants to send a signal to the American people. He's heard them. I think if he stays disciplined.
I think we lost John. Mark, do you agree with that analysis, though, that they're trolling the president? They want him to react?
They do, because, again, they want to get under his skin. But I'll go back to the same thing. They want to appeal to the media. And every time the president fails to show discipline and engages with the Lincoln Project, it's great for them because, of course, the media is going to write about that. It builds them up with Democratic donors, allows them to raise more money, which is helpful. But I'll say again, all they're trying to do is to help Joe Biden and Democrats.
Yeah. I think we're losing everybody right now. Anyway, I think, Lindsay, that Mark's right. I mean, this is something where these guys are getting donors to give them money. And it's funny because normally you have a strategy where you really want to influence a certain group. So you're trying to get, undecideds or people who like a particular issue. But in this, they really are just trying to gin up support among the media to create an illusion of there being a heavy constituency of anti-Trump Republicans, which, as John Solomon just pointed out, no polling bears out is actually happening.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point that you make. And I know that we have you back, Mark, but I think you made a really good point is they just want the president to engage with them and bring him down in that way, because I think we have seen from poll numbers that a lot of Americans, his rhetoric is what gets him in trouble sometimes. And if they can bring him down that way, that's a huge win for them.
I understand his psychology pretty well. And I'm not saying that they know the president as well as Sean does, but they know him well enough to know what pushes his buttons. And every time he reacts to them, or every time someone reacts to him, someone on his team reacts to them, it's a win for them. Now, I will say, in the last few weeks, you've seen opposition research going against them. There is an attempt to try to neutralize them, to try to get them back on their heels. It's good hardball politics. You can't let someone just keep taking shots at you. But it rallies the press to their side for the most part. And I don't know that there's a great way to neutralize them, because the pipeline goes just from their creative minds to Twitter onto television and radio and cable news.
Yeah, and they don't seem to be needed. I mean, they're getting plenty of money. So I think you're absolutely right in your analysis. Mark, as always, I appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys, as if cancel culture hasn't gone far enough, you're not going to believe this. Democratic Congresswoman Alanna Pressley of Massachusetts has now taken it to a whole new level. We're going to talk about what she's advocating next. Then Trish Regan's here. She's going to break down House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's petty partisan politics. And later, America's pastime is back.